Hey folks, and welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info. Well, let's get into a little history and it's not a Christmas day, how they've hoodwinked everybody to consume based on half-truths and lies. Now, before all the Christians come after me with the zeitgeist debunk, this is not totally about zeitgeist, but it does have very relevant, provable information. So please do not email me the debunking zeitgeist video before we start here. Thank you. All right, true origins of Christmas. Christians, please learn your history. Please. Christ is a whole event, but it's not the event that we were told. It is based on something much deeper, much longer, much more traditional. They still don't know. We still don't know. The best and the brightest scientists with all our technology and Elon Musk with his fake space launches over Los Angeles today. Baloney, baloney, baloney. But we don't know where the origins of Christmas come from, folks, nor do the Christians. They seem to not want to know ancient history. Can I ask you one question, all of you who worship and say the Christ event was the main defining event and Christ event was everything? How'd they build the pyramids 10,000 years ago? How'd they build them? Who built them? Why? How can they still stand today? Picture's worth 10,000 words. They use hieroglyphics. We use words. That's how they get us, with our swords and our words. All right, so the Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which it put a man whom they called Christ in place of the sun and pay him the same order adoration that was originally paid to the sun. Thomas Paine. The once again reborn Son of God, S-U-N. There's a very interesting phenomenon that occurs on December 25th. From the summer solstice to the winter solstice, the days become shorter and colder. And from the perspective of the northern hemisphere, the sun appears to move south, get that, appears, and gets smaller and more scarce. The shortening of the days and expiration of the crops when approaching the winter solstice symbolize the process of death to the ancients. It was the death of the sun. So on September 21st, the autumn equinox, when the moon and the sun are of equal time, 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of sunlight, the equator apparently sets on the Southern Cross constellation of the stars. This begins the 3 months it hangs on the Southern Cross, up in the heavens, up in the skies, up in the stars. Then on December 22nd, it stops descending and dies for 3 days on the cross. Now the ancients relied on food for their living, so the sun was everything. So when it stopped going down, they wait, it's dying. And guess what? At midnight on the 24th, the sun or sun is reborn and once again rises off the cross. Then for the next 3 months, it climbs back above the equator, and on March 21st, the vernal equinox, the sun overpowers the darkness and has risen once again to grow life-giving food and provide abundance to all. So on the many of the world's crucified God-men have their traditional birthdays also on December 25th, when the sun that gives us life, the sun that grows our food, the sun that warms our homes and ourselves starts to rise. Don't you think that's kind of important still today, folks? Where are we without the sun? This date is set because the ancients recognized that from a geocentric perspective in the northern hemisphere, meaning Earth-centered, the sun does rise, the sun does set. We're actually the center of the creation. The sun makes an annual descent southward until after midnight on December 21st on the winter solstice, and it stops moving southerly. During this time, the ancients declared that God's sun had died. These are many different cultures celebrate the great joy of the Son of God on the birthday of the 25th. And here's the 4 seasons here, the cross and the sun. See? They just copied it and changed it a little bit. Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, is the star of the east. On December 21st, it aligns with the 3 brightest stars in Orion's belt, which have been called the 3 kings. The 3 kings line up perfectly with Sirius, pointing to the exact spot in which the sun will rise the next morning. The larger constellation in which this takes place was known to the ancients as the manger or cradle, which is visible before dawn on December 25th. This is theocosmology, folks, astrotheocosmology. We have light pollution, so we've lost the story of the heavens, which told us the story of who we are. This is why studying the constellations, the stars, and astrology is so critical. So the 3 kings or 3 magi eventually follow the star to the east to the manger, the birthplace of God's Son, at the winter solstice. Easter also derives from the eastern star. The 3 gifts of the magi are frankincense, myrrh, and gold. Frankincense is an amber resin that was burned at solar temples. Myrrh was known as the tears of the sun, and gold too long represented the sun in the ancient world. It is still the golden sun. The recurrent virgin theme represents this constellation Virgo, which is Latin for virgin. The ancient glyph for Virgo looks like an M, which explains the M names of virgin mothers like Jesus' mother Mary, Adonis's mother Mira, Buddha's mother Maya, and Horus's mother Isis Mary. M is also means mata or matter. Virgo is also called the house of bread, and the zodiacal symbol shows a woman holding a chaff of wheat, representing August-September time of harvest. Also, Aries, the sprig of Aries, the ram's horn, is the first of the new seedlings coming up through the earth. Taurus is the bull that pulls the plows. It's all based on agriculture as well as astrology and through their symbolism. So the house of bread is a reference to the constellation Virgo, not a place on earth. Were you aware that there are 15 different religions that have the same identical teachings of Christianity? Very suspect of the 16th religion, which is copied off the 15 previous religions, and I am told that one is the truth. And here you can see others that were born a virgin. It's not a new story, folks. And I highly encourage you here, before all the Christians come at me, to read this book by Kersey Graves, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. Tells the same exact story before the Roman Catholic story took hold 500 years ago. All right, so following the pre-Christian deities, Krishna, Buddha, Zulius, you can read all these, Hill and Fida, Madonnas, they all had the same story from the World's 16 Crucified Saviors. Please get the book and read it. Also, please read the Nag Hammadi text and the Dead Sea Scrolls and the ancient Ethiopian Bible, all left out of the King James Bible, folks. Reincarnation, know God yourself, all those things were eliminated from the Roman Catholic King James Version. No people of the ancient world believe the sun to be God. That belongs to the disinformation file. In point of fact, every ancient culture and nation on earth have all used the sun as the most logically appropriate symbol to represent the glory of the unseen creator of the heavens. Here it is important to remember 2 points. The exception to Japan, the ancient world mythologies always understood the sun to be masculine qualities and the moon feminine, or Isis. Second, the English language derived from German. In Germanic, the word sun is spelled Sani, or sun. The 2 words have been used interchangeably. The moon is magnetic. The moon, Apollo is the sun god, the male principle. The feminine divine is Isis, the moon, or Luna. Thus it is assumed that God's Son was made a visible representative of the unseen creator in heaven. So it was said, when you have seen the Son, you have seen the Father. The Father is glorified in the Son. The ancient people reasoned that no one on earth could ever lay claim of ownership to the Son. Such a magnificent heavenly body must belong to the unseen creator of the universe. It became, figuratively speaking, not a man's, but a God's Son. To the ancients, the most dangerous feared enemy was darkness. They couldn't grow food. They couldn't see. Our lives depended on energy from the sun. The prince of darkness is the dark of evil, the devil. God is the good. God's Son is the light of the world and the prince of peace. The peace he brings solace from the word solar, meaning sun. In the Egyptian personification, the prince of darkness was known as Set, and the sun was known as Horus. This is how we get horizon, because of the sun lighting up the good sun, and sunset, the bad sun that took us into darkness every night. This is where we get the word hero from hooray, also why the interpretation of the zodiac is a horoscope. At daybreak, this newborn child, God's Son, is born again. Horus is risen. Even today, when the sun comes up, we see the horizon. His life is divided into 12 parts, or 12 steps across the heaven. 12 Horus equals 12 hours. Horus hours. This is the origin of the modern 12-step program. Horus, the newborn son, or the bringer of light. In Latin, light bringer is Lucius, or Lucifer, or Luke. God's Son brought his wonderful light to the world and distributed it over 12 months. God's Son had 12 companions or helpers, his life-saving work. So it was, God's Son had 12 apostles or monks that followed him religiously through his life. Incidentally, now you know why the American jury system has 12 jurors who help bring the truth to light with the light of truth. Keep in mind, God's Son symbolically represented the light of truth, but was condemned by his enemies who could not endure the light of truth in their life. Sound familiar? It's like today. We can't handle the truth. When we're confronted with the harsh realities of life and the light of truth, and we do not wish to face it, and which runs counter to our views, such truth is judged in your mind or judged in the temple area of your brain and put to death in your head. Therefore, God's Son, the truth and the light, is put to death at Golgotha, or the place of the skull, located somewhere between your ears. This putting to death of the light truth in your mind is always accompanied by two thieves: regret for the past and fear of the future. Which one's yours? And of course, the God's Son goes to his death wearing a corona, Latin for the crown of thorns. The church was The church was sure that the study of astrology would undermine its religion if people thought that the sun, the moon, the stars, the signs of the zodiac, and the planets hold life and death at their own pleasure, and that they rule and govern both bodies and souls of man. In this scenario, the planets and stars should be adored and worshipped as gods, which they are, of course. Astrology survives our Western culture because Christianity embraced it with one hand while condemning it as devilish art of the other. And here we see this famous painting of the Jesus' Last Supper, and here's the 3 months of spring, 3 months of summer, autumn, and winter, all dovetail perfectly with ancient astro-theo-cosmology. Out of the circular pictorial sun calendars developed the Holy Cross. The sun is portrayed on a cross, a circle with perpendicular lines intersecting in the middle, the horizontal axis representing the spring and autumn equinoxes, the vertical axis representing the summer and winter solstice, the 4 seasons. This is the reason you often see a circle around the Christian, Celtic, ancient, and modern crosses. Since the Earth experienced 4 different seasons, the round sun calendar was divided into 4 parts. This is why we have the Bible in 4 Gospels. The 4 Gospels represent the 4 seasons. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are spring, summer, autumn, and winter. This is why the famous painting in Last Supper pictures the 12 followers of the sun. The book of Mark is the book of Mars. The book of Mark in zodiac terms is the book of Aries, or it rises from Aries, the beginning of spring. Aries month is April, which comes from Latin aperio, meaning to open or begin. Just as Aries is the first zodiacal sign, April was the first month of the calendar year. We used to have May Day as the first day of the year. Now May Day is considered, or April 1st is the first day of the year. Now it's considered April Fool's Day. See how they do it, folks? They take the ancients and all their theocosmology, and they put their buildings, they put their culture, they put their Luciferian, devilish religion right on top of it. April 1st is now Fool's Day. Used to be New Year's Day for the ancients. The spring equinox was a more appropriate calendrical beginning because it was when the daytime hours officially overtake the nighttime hours. It triumphs over darkness. Gaia begins to bloom again. It's not hard to figure out. The book of Luke is the book of Leo, I am. Luke is Latin for Lucius, meaning light. Lions are used the world over to symbolize the sun and its rays, which resembles the lion's face. The book of Matthew is actually Mot, the Egyptian goddess. It's also symbolized blindfolded, holding the scales of justice, which relates to Libra. It's officially the last sign of the added zodiac, which is why Matt was the last of the 12 to join. He's symbolized by the eagle in Christian iconography because Aquila, the eagle, is the closest animal constellation to Libra. Finally, the book of John is the book of Aquarius. John is for January, which is a month corresponding to Aquarius. It's a man carrying a pouring pitcher of water, which is why we have baptism in John the Baptist. His death by beheading is another astrological allegory whereby the August 29th, his head star moves above the horizon while the rest of his body remains below the horizon. On August 29th, the sun sets in Leo. It's also Herod beheads John, another story of the similar like. The sign of Aquarius is associated with baptism, cleansing, and purification by water. That's where we're heading into the age of Aquarius. But it's also Saturnian, which is very hard lessons to learn. It's going to be very difficult, but it's going to be of the mind. Aquarian is of the mind, so we're not going to be grounded. So all of you who want security and know what's going to happen tomorrow are going to be displaced unless you embrace the unknowing. There are chronicles, which are specifically relating to the round of the zodiac. They are measures. His apostles, or post, means demarcation post, a color of the zodiac. They are his disciples. Disc means round circle, as in zodiac. In prehistoric lunar astrology, heaven was the lands of God and mystery. The sky was itself living. It's very important. It's alive up there. It's part of us. The stars were the abode of God. The shining stars were indeed themselves luminous gods. Astronomy was the knowledge not of heavenly bodies, but of heavenly beings. It was a heavenly, celestial, cosmic, or divine knowledge, knowledge of the devas, the bright, luminous gods. The inclusion of domestic animals in the nativity scene may have been inspired by Christian traditions. The third day after the birth of Jesus, Mary went out to the cave and, entering a stable, placed the child in a manger, and an ox and an ass adored him. He was fulfilled with which was said by the prophet Isaiah, "The ox knows his owner, and the ass his master's crib." Among the stars of Cancer is a small group appearing as the back of the crab shell, which includes acelli, or asses, along with, I'm going to try to pronounce that, the beehive or manger. Popularly, this configuration was known as manger or crib, in which Christ was born. The two asses outflank the manger. This might be the origin of the scene in nativity pictures of the birth of Christ, or the positioning of a donkey always behind the manger. The word comes from Latin, means a crib, a manger, a hive, or a fold for animals. This refers to Cancer and its cluster. It's all the more significant since Job had stated in his discussion, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and he will stand on the earth in the last days. And though after death worms consume my body, yet my flesh I will see, whom my own eyes will behold, and not another's." The name Cancer may be related to Arabic. The sign was Can-Kur, which means priest prince. The ox bull Taurus is for sure, which means to return and to come back. This is the star Aldebaran, which means the follower. It's the second brightest star. The Japanese name for Pleiades is Saburu. The Persian name is Soraya. So Christ gave us all the main part of the Bible story in this constellation. However, remember, the word for bull is also the word for return. And this is another important part of the story. We're almost to the end of the zodiac, and the promise is there is that Christ will return. At the time of the Southern Cross, on the opposite side was a figure of the autumn crossing, the sign of the sacrificial offering, the crucified of the solar allegory, so far as the suffering, descending, diminishing sun was ever represented as crucified. And every time Orion, the conqueror of darkness, rose, the cross of autumn set. According to legend, Jesus was born in a stable between a horse and a goat, symbols of Sagittarius and Capricorn. He was baptized in Aquarius, the water bearer. He chose his first disciples, the fishermen, in Pisces, the sign of fish. And this is why today, in the astrology, 2,160 years of Pisces, the Christians use fish as their symbol. He became the good shepherd and the lamb of Aries, the ram. Jesus told the parables of sowing and tilling the fields in Taurus. In Cancer, the celestial sea of Galilee, he calmed the storm and waters and spoke of the backsliders, which are the crabs, and rode the ass and foal in triumph to the city of peace, Jerusalem. Jesus was the lion in Leo. In Libra, Christ was the true vine in the garden of Gethsemane, the winepress, as this is the time of the grape harvest. Jesus was betrayed by Judas, the backstabber of Scorpio. In Sagittarius, Jesus was wounded in the side by the centaur or centurion. This is from the Christ Conspiracy, Achariah S. The goat was the sacrificial animal. I'll leave you a little more here, but here's stuff on the Zeitgeist. I want to read down here a little more. All right. No doubt the Virgin was... Okay, let's do the ritual. Concerning the annual solar death and resurrection. In the Julian calendar, the 25th of December was the winter solstice, regarded the nativity of the sun, because the day begins to lengthen. The ritual of nativity appears to be celebrated in Syria and Egypt was remarkable. The Egyptians even represented the newborn son by an image of an infant, which on his birthday, the winter solstice, they brought forth and exhibited to his worshippers. No doubt the Virgin, who thus conceived and bore a son on the 25th, was the great Oriental goddess, whom the Semites called the Heavenly Virgin, or simply the Heavenly Goddess. In Semitic lands, she was the form of Astarte. Thus it appears that the Christian Church chose to celebrate the birthday of its founder on the 25th of December in order to transfer the devotion of the heathen from the sun to him who is called the Son of Righteousness, or Jesus. The solar and vegetative death and reconception occurs on the vernal equinox. The fertility cult of the dying god Attis and the great mother Cybele was introduced to Rome from its seat at Pessinus in Asia Minor in 204 BC. Attis is the son of the Virgin Mother Lana, sacrificed by himself a tree in the great festival of the cult centered around the raising up of the sacred pine tree, swatched like a corpse in a winding sheet. Same storyline in the Council of Nicene. Now 2012, Pope now declares Christmas Day wrong. Pope now declares nativity scene a myth. See how they're trying to mess with us? So this cross on Mount Golgotha, Golgotha meaning skull, This is the spirit coming down to the heavens to earth, and this is the matter east to west. North and south, consciousness rising down. Humanity, we are antennas. We are to receive the celestial consciousness from the heavens and the luminaries and ground ourselves with truth in the matter that exists between us. The sun's corona, the plasma around the sun, is allegorically used as the sun's crown of thorns. Cultures all over the ancient world kept track of time and seasons based on movement of the sun. The simple cross with perpendicular and transverse arms of equal length represent the nave and spokes of the solar wheel, sending forth its rays in all directions. In the ancient parish, the church of Bemington, Cheshire, England, there is to be seen this day not only solar wheel as one of the adherents of the redos, but deltas, acorns, and Maltese crosses. This is why we see a round circle on the sun and crosses on the Christian churches. This is why Jesus in early occult art is always shown with his head on the cross, for Jesus is the Son of God, the light of the world, the risen Savior, who will come again as it does every morning, the glory of God, who defends against the works of darkness, as he is born again every morning and can be seen coming in the clouds up in the heaven in the crown of thorns. The saintly halo originated from the sun god Helios, as pointed out in even Christian writers. The heads of the saints didn't really glow as often portrayed in religious art. The use of halos or nimbus originated from the pagan Greeks and Romans to represent their sun god Helios, later artists adopted for Christian image. The halo is actually just the sun behind the person's head. This is also the Pope's headdress, is a big fish, Pisces. All right, Easter. The Eastern Star is what it's named after. Easter is the first Sunday after the first day of spring. It's all based on astrotheology. Minister is a mini star. It's all based on ancient teachings that have been overrun and taken over by the Roman Catholic religion. The Christian celebration Easter is a roving date traditionally placed on the first full moon following the vernal equinox. This wandering date indicates Christ's passion and resurrection are not historical, with their placement following the full moon or after the vernal equinox. Christo is not only the sun triumphing over darkness, but is also the sun's light in the moon. That date that Christ's death and resurrection is based on astrotheology is thoroughly demonstrated in the subject discussion by ancient church fathers, including Alexandria or Paschal Chronicle, or called the Eastern Chronicle. We get into the 9 months, why there's 9 months, the Milky Way galaxy, the great year of progression. I'm not going to go into this all. I'll put these in the show notes because it's a very long article. But I just wanted to finish just with one very interesting comment about as above, so below. So in the Christian cycle, or not, in the processional of the equinox, which is the 12 zodiac cycles, it takes each zodiac cycle, like Pisces, Aries, Libra, whatever, 2,160 years to proceed. Or it's called a procession in the skies, the processional of the equinox. So 12 times 2,160 is 25,940 years to go a complete zodiac 12 cycle of all 12 signs through the zodiac. This is what Plato called the great year and the Vedics called the great day. Okay, Plato's great year, 25,940 years. So how many breaths does a human take in a minute? The average is between 16 and 18. So 18 breaths in a minute. To find out an hour, we do 18 times 60, and we get 1,080 breaths in 1 hour. 1 hour of 1,080 times 24 hours equals, you guessed it, 25,940 breaths. As above, so below, or 25,920, some call it. All right, so I'll leave this in the show notes. You can go through the rest of this stuff. It's very informative. I wrote this a couple years ago. I forgot how much information was in here. But please understand, our history is much, much deeper than the Roman Catholic King James versions. It's a verse. It's one of many versions. So please don't say it's the authority. And by the way, folks, here's the as above, so below. It's a book. It's what you interpret it, what it means to you, not what it says. The book does not talk. A Bible does not say. It's what you interpret it to mean. And if it touches you and touches something deep in your spirit, that means something. but it doesn't mean it's the same thing. You've got to learn your history of where these words come from and how they've been taken over and hijacked by the Roman Catholic Church, creators of the King James Bible. And they got it all in our court systems. And thanks for Jordan Maxwell. I know his Russell Pines is his stage name, or was his real name. But we got to stop this adulation of false gods, folks. You know, we can get into the whole Saturn. Sheriff in the ancient Egyptian was a lawgiver, always a six-pointed star. The sixth chakra of human energy is the third eye, or 3 times 6 is 666. When your third eye opens, you develop your sixth sense and intuition. This is why today you get married before God, and the symbol of God is the ring that put on each other's fingers. It's the ring of Saturn, Satan. The ancient name of Saturn was mentioned El. It's the reason why those who chosen El were called elites. In fact, the words elect, elder, elevated, Elohim, tempel, circle, gospel, apostle, disciple, evangelist, all derived from the cult of El. Angels are messenger of God, but God was El, which is why we have the names of archangels bearing El, suffix Raphael, Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, and Bible. All right? So please don't attack me, you Christians, too hard. It's a much deeper story than most of you have learned. Please read this. Also includes the creation of the Islamic religion. Saturn is an important key to understanding the long heritage conspiracy. The city of Rome was originally known as Saturnia, or City of Saturn. The Roman Catholic Church retains much of Saturn's worship in its ritual. Saturn also relates to Lucifer. In various cult dictionaries, Saturn is associated with evil. Saturn was important to the religion of Mithra and also the Drumans. In a blind world, the one-eyed man is king. This is why you see one-eyed. Black Eyed Peas are on a song called Third Eye. All right. So that's all I got for today, folks. I'll put it in the show notes. Please go ahead with the comments, and we'll go from there. So happy, not a Christmas day, but a celebration of the sun returning to bring life to all through food and warmth. And once again, the sun is risen to give us life. Thanks for listening. Have a happy non-Christ Mass Day. Thank you. Ancient history. Can I ask you one question, all of you who worship and say the Christ event was the main defining event and Christ event was everything? How'd they build the pyramids 10,000 years ago? How'd they build them? Who built them? Why? How can they still stand today? Picture's worth 10,000 words. They use hieroglyphics. We use words. That's how they get us, with our swords and our words. All right, so the Christian religion is a parody on the worship of the sun, in which it put the man whom they called Christ in place of the sun and pay him the same order adoration that was originally paid to the sun. Thomas Paine. The once again reborn Son of God, S-U-N. There's a very interesting phenomenon that occurs on December 25th. From the summer solstice to the winter solstice, the days become shorter and colder. And from the perspective of the northern hemisphere, the sun appears to move south, get that, appears, and gets smaller and more scarce. The shortening of the days and expiration of the crops when approaching the winter solstice symbolize the process of death to the ancients. It was the death. Hey folks, and welcome to another video from plaintruth.info. Well, let's get into a little history and it's not a Christmas day, how they've hoodwinked everybody to consume based on half-truths and lies. Now, before all the Christians come after me with the Zeitgeist debunk, this is not totally about Zeitgeist, but it does have very relevant, provable information. So please do not email me the debunking Zeitgeist video before we start here. Thank you. All right, true origins of Christmas. Christians, please learn your history. Please. Christ is a whole event, but it's not the event that we were told. It is based on something much deeper, much longer, much more traditional. They still don't know. We still don't know. The best and the brightest scientists with all our technology and Elon Musk with his fake space launches over Los Angeles today. Baloney, baloney, baloney. But we don't know where the origins of Christmas come from, folks, nor do the Christians. They seem to not want to know of the sun. So on September 21st, the autumn equinox, when the moon and the sun are of equal time, 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of sunlight, the equator apparently sets on the Southern Cross constellation of the stars. This begins the 3 months it hangs on the Southern Cross. up in the heavens, up in the skies, up in the stars. Then on December 22nd, it stops descending and dies for 3 days on the cross. Now, the ancients relied on food for their living, so the sun was everything. So when it stopped